point, to go back to Megan's comment, is that we're not there yet, because the proposal that has been presented to us is that we deny the application. So until we decide if we're going to deny or not, it's not, their recommendations of what they would do to mitigate are not really relevant. Right?
Okay,
If we decide to accept with mitigation, then we would consider whether that's a mitigation we would want to accept or modify. So,
Good point.
very good. Thank you.
Which is why I said, and now for the hard part.
So as I was looking through the points, I think the first thing we have to do is address the response to the proposed mobile lift, because that seemed to be one of the main factors behind the proposed denial, was that had not been adequately considered at the time, and at the time that this document was created. And we do have now verbal responses, right, from the applicant about the issues surrounding use of that, specifically the like the mobile lift that we referenced in our findings of fact. So I think that's one thing, right, we have to talk about.
I guess my perspective is, if we can look at the application, sort of take a step back and look at the application as a whole, and what we heard today and what we saw today, and whether or not we are comfortable with, one, denying the application, or two, approving the application. And this is where things usually sort of get a little hairy, approving it with doing a conditional approval or a temporary denial. And I always have to get read back, what those mean. I think for me personally, I am in the middle. I am not comfortable with denying the application, but I am definitely not comfortable with approving the application either. I feel that for me, if things were looked at further, if the design was looked at further, there's certain design elements that we talked about that should be reviewed further. One of them is access to the platform, the vertical, circulation, building elements, as Bob said, landscape elements. This project is not just about getting passengers onto trains. It is also about the experience of the passenger and the actual resource itself. And so I don't necessarily want to completely deny the application. I think in my point of view, I see the need. I just think that there needs to be more work in order to make sure that it's the best solution possible for the station.
So if we were, just to follow your thought, Sophia, if we were to do a conditional approval, are you suggesting that you would be amenable to compromising about the full length high platform? Which
I'm saying that with further review and additional information that would be provided, that could then be reviewed. If that means that we have to do a high level platform here, then I want them to prove it, that there's like no other, there is no other alternative, or that we've done the very best that we can. To me, denying the application outright just kind of means like, no, just go back to the drawing board, and then it's sort of, in my mind, a little bit negates all the work that they have done. They have done some work. I just think that there's more to be done. There's more thought to be put into this. Is this really the best solution? Have they really, exercised all possibilities to to make sure that they are impacting as, you know, as less as possible. The other thing that really concerns me is that it sounds like they just notified their consulting parties like 3 weeks ago. That's not enough time to do a real review of, you know, these plans, and then to provide feedback in regards to support or questions about this application. To me, that's not adequate time, especially it's August. Most people probably or may not even be around at this time, you know, that kind of thing. And so I don't feel like sending out notifications on July 29th and it's August 15th is adequate notice to consult with
Interested parties. You're
their
absolutely
interested
right.
parties.
Yeah.
That's the other concern that I have.
So can I ask about one other concern you'd raised earlier, Sophia, and that is
Mhm.
about the participation of a registered historic architect in the project? I don't understand, I think, all of the distinctions between registered architect, registered historic architect, but is it still your thought that that issue in terms of the expertise provided in the design process by someone whose specialty and expertise is historic preservation and historic architecture was or was not met, or would that be another potential recommendation?
It sounds like their consultant or their architect has worked on several, you know, in the past, several historic stations in the past. And so I just definitely wanted to make sure that that was the case. They are working with Jablonski, whom are very reputable in what they do. So I don't have any questions about that. But I also know that you know, things, if the project is being driven by, if the project is being driven by the goal that level boarding is the absolute end goal, then other things are naturally going to have to be compromised. And what I'm saying is that I understand that that's absolutely a goal, but has that goal been balanced with the historic resource and the implication impacts of losing the canopy, altering that elevation, you know, what other things are going to be vertical transport, circulation, like, you know, those things. And I think those things should be further explored.
Yeah, I understand. I think, so I remember several times in the past being in similar situations and Mary Lou saying, this is an architectural design problem. I can address it. And I think it's just that as a non-architect and non-designer, I don't have any sense of what,
I
of
understand.
what kind of other directions they might pursue. So I don't know whether, I don't know whether there's more specific
Yeah.
directions we could or should provide or not, just as someone who's not in that profession.
Understood.
And
I think they've considered all of these things. They prioritize them differently than maybe what we would like to understand the process would be. And Sophia, you just want a level playing field for all of these elements and not having something weighted more heavily, which it seems in this, what we've been presented, there's things that have been weighed more heavily than others.
Yes.
agreed that if you had an historic architect, not just someone who had historic architect experience or had worked on other historic properties, you might have a more forceful movement in the direction of preservation. I think that's what we're trying to say. And I agree.
Ultimately, this conditionally approved or temporarily denied, or what are those distinctions? I'm not clear on
I
that.
always have to have counsel,
Explain that.
or Kate usually reads it to us because
There she is. She's ready too.
she's because this
I
is
have the
always
page marked.
a challenge, it's always a challenge that we come across. And I think because there's dangers to just, in my opinion, to just denying it. And I don't think that in my opinion, denial is not necessarily the avenue that I would want to go. But I just think that we need an avenue to ask for more information so that we're confident that whatever happens in in the future, the council can say, we did our due diligence and we did our homework. This is even a case where I would be willing to even go a step further, and we've done this in the past where we have like a little micro,
Yeah.
like
Committee
committee.
that consults with, yeah.
Yes, and to ensure that, we're doing our due diligence.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Would you
Kate,
like me to read
take it
what
away.
the options are?
Yes, please,
Okay.
please.
Okay. Okay, so the options you have, there are 4 options in the rules. The first is to authorize or consent to the encroachment or project design to the conceptual level as described in the application. The second option is to authorize or consent to the encroachment with conditions. The third option is to deny the application for project authorization temporarily based upon such factors as the need for additional information, exploration of additional alternatives for avoidance or mitigation of the encroachment, damage, destruction, or other adverse effects. And then the fourth option is.
Can I just interrupt for, I'm sorry, second, third one? If I remember correctly, this then does not come back to council. It goes to your office for decision, but possibly
Right, so-
with a committee, a subcommittee of council members advising and consulting with you. Is that how that works?
Right.
That's how that's worked in the past. So
Okay,
if there's a
thank you.
temporary denial, then what happens is the applicant has 60 days to provide whatever additional information was identified in the temporary denial. Once that information is received by the department, then the department has 60 days to review that information and make a final determination on the application. And so usually there's not time within that 60-day period for it to be scheduled for a council meeting. So that's when the council in the past has recommended setting up a subcommittee or some other smaller group of council members to assist in the review.
So we would be required then to, if it was a temporary denial, to lay out the items, the elements that would be necessary to be provided within that 60-day period.
That's
And then
correct.
staff would take it from there.
That's correct. That's what could happen.
And that one would not include the consultation with reconsultation with members of the sites council.
It doesn't have to unless you want to, as has been done before, form a subcommittee to review the material.
And be able to conform to that 60-day time frame.
Correct.
Right. I don't know about the rest of you, but I mean, it seems it's important to me that the staff denied this application, the resolution, the draft resolution, and it doesn't happen a lot, does it? Not in my time frame. I mean,
And yours is a long time frame.
historic.
Right.
So that sends a message to me. So I don't know how you feel about that, the rest of you.
I'm good with it.
So if we decide to deny it temporarily, which is kind of the way I'm leaning, then, but we have to lay out what all
What's-
these elements are.
Right.
Right, right. And I agree with you, Sophia, that, there's a process here. There are things that have to be provided, but there's a process that has to be followed that I don't know that it was to our satisfaction. And can that process be compressed to 2 months?
Yeah, I don't know, and I guess that's sort of, that question isn't necessarily our purview, right? So, I think the best that we could do is list out our items of concern, or that we would like to have more information about, and however the process plays out as far as timing. I'm not sure that we have the ability to worry about that.
I think we could at least insist that they get comment from the local historical societies and other historic.
Well, I don't think that we can insist that they can comment, but we can absolutely ask that they are provided with adequate timing, more than 3 weeks. And if they choose, and if the consulting parties choose not to respond, then that's on them. But giving groups in August, 3 weeks before a sites council meeting to pour over drawings and then to participate in meetings, to me, is just not fair.
It wasn't even 3 weeks, and I
It wasn't
think
even 3 weeks.
absolutely right.
Yep.
I agree.
That should be included. Yeah.
Yeah, excuse me, Sophia and council. This is Catherine Hunt. I'm in with Megan in her office. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. There was a fire drill in my building, so I came over here for the meeting. But just wanted to interject to just point out one thing for you to consider. In reading through, as Kate read through the conditional denial, it was approval with conditions or the temporary denial. It strikes me that those provisions aren't necessarily intended for a complete overhaul of a project. If it was a denial, and this is obviously just for your consideration, if it was a denial and they had an opportunity, New Jersey Transit would have an opportunity to take a good look at all, the wonderful conversation here today, and to reconsider the project and to submit a new proposal. For you folks then would have an opportunity to review that and consider it again. Just some food for thought there, because a temporary denial will have some tight time parameters on it. So I think you were going there, Flavia, too. So that's
Yeah.
kind of plays into it as well, right? Into your decision making.
Okay, I think that's helpful to know as well.
Okay.
It seems also to me that if we were to deny it, that we should be specific about,
Well-
the reasons.
Yeah.
And also if an application were to come back, what it should include or what it should address.
Agreed. Then let's at least determine what we feel is missing here. And whether that becomes conditions of approval or a roadmap to proceed, that's not going to really change, correct?
The resolution begins with feasible and prudent alternatives to the encroachment. I think it should begin with sufficient measures have not been taken to avoid, reduce, or mitigate the encroachment, and then we should follow with an analysis.
So you think, sorry,
Yeah,
you think
I think
item
this-
number 2 should actually be number 1?
Yeah, and then our recommendation then comes as a result of the decision that sufficient measures have not been taken, and what two would be what sufficient measures would look like. The review of feasible and prudent alternatives that were not reviewed, the review of commentary by local historic actors and concerned citizens, and anything else that the commission decides should be part of the review. So I think we need to reverse 2 and 1, and then give them an outline of what they need to do.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you.
Is it appropriate to state in here, the comments that you all made before in response to my query that, it seems that the current, proposal did not give equal weight to the, I don't want to say equal weight to the safety versus the history, because it's not that. But didn't give equal weight to alternative solutions to achieving other
I think-
elements of the project, as it gave to the preservation of the historic fabric.
I agree with that.
I think you can maybe say that greater consideration maybe should be greater consideration should be greater consideration should be given to retaining, as you know, the maximum amount of historic fabric for the station as possible.
And character.
So would we say that after maintaining the first sentence in what's now number 2? That we are stating that yes, feasible and prudent alternatives do exist while meeting the goal. And then greater consideration to, and then whatever other.
Feasible and prudent alternatives to the encroachment exist.
Right, not that we're going to accept,
I can
you know,
provide
the-
one
like
alternative
alternate 2,
that would
etc.
limit the changes. Yeah, I agree with you, Lou, and I think it probably would go after.
Where Megan has it now.
Yeah, I think that's probably okay.
And then do we want to say any more about that in terms of the design issues and concerns? Do you want to be any more
Well,
specific or?
Actually, I think that I'm going to say the opposite. I think the greater consideration probably becomes a new number. I think maybe it becomes a new number 3, and then in that new number 3, we say considerations should include historic landscape features, review of the impacts of the vertical circulation, you know, those types of things.
Mhm.
So that becomes a new number 3 where it kind of
Okay.
lists out and it talks about the things that were the concerns. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So then, yeah, it would be historic landscape features, it would be vertical circulation, it would be consultation with local organizations, however that
I-
needs to be worded, or is that separate?
I think the consultation with, I think that's separate. I think that would be a new, I don't know what number that we're on, but I think it would be a new number by itself.
Okay,
And
so
that-
then
and-
in addition to vertical circulation and historic landscaping, what other specifics regarding the design do you want to
The
pull out?
integration of the platform and access.
Access to the train?
Access to both the station and the platform.
Okay.
And the train, no?
Well, that's access to the access to the platform. Yes, and access to the train. You're right, Flavia. And then also the design and the potential alterations for that elevation, that train facing the track facing elevation, whatever elevation that is. That's the elevation that's going to have the biggest impact. And
Okay.
then there's also the features that are connected. So there's the canopy that could potentially be lost. And that language of that elevation is going to be completely altered. And that really should be looked at again.
It strikes me that all of these considerations are what an historic architect would bring to the conversation. And are we saying that they should do all this, but they don't have to consult an historic architect, or what?
You want me to put a recommendation to consult a historic architect? And we
Yeah,
can
I think
review
we
this
can put
later?
in a
That's what we usually
recommendation.
do.
Yeah.
Thank you for that addition. That's good.
Thank you, Flavia.
So that is also separate from the greater consideration given to, is it, or is that part of it? That in order to achieve greater consideration,
I think
an
that's a
historic
part of it.
architect needs to be involved. Okay.
We're recommending that one, if
Right,
one is
right,
not
right.
involved, that there would be one.
Right.
So, okay, so what do you have, Megan? You have historic landscape features. Is the next one vertical circulation?
Yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
historic landscape features, vertical circulation, integration of the platform and access to the station and the platform and the train, design and potential alteration of the track-facing facades to the outbound and inbound stations, impact to the canopies.
I think the last item, the consultation with the historic architect, should be moved up into the first sentence of 3 so that it becomes part and parcel of the consideration of all the other elements.
Oops. Is that better, Flavia?
Yes.
I'll bullet the items after. I can't do it in this mode.
No, and it should say greater consideration should include, I think.
Greater consideration is right.
Okay.
And I would say the use of historic landscape features.
You want me to add anything like research? Anything based on research?
Yes.
Yes.
use of well-researched historic landscape features.
Use of historic landscape features in the future design based on historic research.
I'll fix the formatting later.
And then for the vertical circulation, it would be vertical circulation. I think both within the station and on the platform.
Does that mean combining the circulation
No,
element?
it just means it just means that there's vertical circulation elements or elevators inside the building that provides access, but also the circulation exterior can be ramps or stairs.
No, I understand that, but
Oh.
Do you mean that to be combined with integration of the platform and access to the station and the platform and train? In other words, it seems to me that vertical circulation and the next item seem to correlate with one another.
They can.
Yeah.
However, Megan decides to put them, it doesn't bother me.
Okay, and did you see, I noted for historic landscapes such as but not limited to historic postcards?
Yes.
I don't know what the gentleman was looking at.
Photos, historic and photos. And then for the last one, I think so it can be design and potential alterations to the track facing facades to the outbound and inbound station building, such as the building canopies, existing openings, etc. So I don't think impacts to canopies has to be separate, because I think there's a number of things that would need to be roof lines, for instance, that's not the canopy that should be considered.
Okay, I'm looking at the first item, and I wonder if we could at least say that while efforts have been made, sufficient measures have not been taken. I think the goodwill of the applicant was just insufficient, but it was there. Thank you.
Is that good?
For number 3, can you change it to say greater consideration should be given to retain the maximum amount of historic fabric and character of the station while balancing, so I'm at the end now, while balancing the need to provide safe access to rail passengers. But that's really the crux of it, right? It's
Correct.
the balance, and right now we're kind of seeing a bit of an imbalance.
What are they still talking about?
So item number 2, feasible and prudent alternatives to
Creating
the,
the resolution. I had it.
can somebody, thank you. Feasible and prudent, item number 2, feasible and prudent Alternatives to the encroachment exist while meeting NJ Transit's project goal. It seems that wants to be attached to something else.
I-
Number 4,
It
there's a,
should
It
be-
was, we broke it up.
I think
Oh.
should be the lead sentence for what occurs in item 3. So it could be, they could be
right. You're right,
amalgamated.
Flavia.
Feasible and prudent alternatives exist and greater consideration should be given. No?
Yes. Okay. And then the public benefit of the will have an impact on the attachment. I think 3. I think 3, 4 can. Can 3 and 4 be combined? Can 4 sort of become? I mean, the paragraph would need to be cleaned up, but can 4 become the end of 3, and then can the new number 4 be about
Yeah.
public consultation?
The 4 should become the lead in to 3, not the tail end, it seems to
Okay. Well, then switch them.
me. The first sentence, at least, of that tail should go at the top and then followed by the applicant provided one alternative.
I'm sorry, you lost me.
So where it
pub-
says the public benefit, it says solutions dot the public benefit. And if in number 5,
Okay.
Yeah. that
Oh,
first
okay,
sentence, the
That
first sentence,
should go at
Flavia's
top
saying
of-
move it to the beginning of the paragraph.
Sure. Just that sentence?
Um,
We're frozen here.
I think you could read through it and just clean it up, but I think it could just be 1.
Just be that one sentence?
Yeah.
Okay. You want me to take all this out?
No, leave
Oh,
it.
no.
I think, no, I want you to leave it, but I think for the sake of time, I think you can read
Right.
through 4 and clean it up.
Sure.
Sure.
I can take out about the Moby lift, because I talked about it.
Yep.
Did you want to add to public consultation under 3?
I think public consultation should actually, I think they should be swapped, and I think public consultation should be, in my opinion, the new 3
4?
should be, it should be the new number 4. Yeah, you should swap them, and it should go at the end.
That the public needs more time to comment?
Yeah, that adequate time should be provided to consulting parties. To provide feedback. Adequate time should be provided for consultation to allow for consulting parties to provide feedback and comments on the proposed project. And I would also say documentation of that process should be submitted to the HPO for record.
Along with copies of any written responses that any of those organizations decide to submit, correct?
Okay. I'm just gonna put parties to cover everyone. Okay. Anything else? No, I'll clean this up.
I don't have anything else.
Is it appropriate to add up front, now therefore be it resolved by the New Jersey Historic Sites Council that based upon the above findings, the council, and then add in agreement with HPO, recommends that the commissioner deny the application as proposed for the following reasons.
Guess
This-
that was my next question, right? Was that in addition to laying out these criteria, we had to decide whether we thought they could be accomplished within the period of a temporary denial or whether an outright denial,
Outright.
but, you know, would be more appropriate.
As it's currently written, it's an outright denial. Because a temporary
Yes, it's currently an
denial,
outright denial,
So-
yes.
and the 4 points that you have drafted are the reasons for the denial.
Yes, yes.
It doesn't mean
But
they
could
can't come
also
back with a
be,
different project.
right, but they
Right.
could also be requests for, you know, additional consideration of
They
these
could, but
points.
I think council was, the caution that our council was providing is that with the, and I can be corrected, but with the temporary denial, there isn't a time limit of the 60
I know.
days.
Right,
Right, and as it stands right now, this is Catherine again, as it stands right now, there really isn't a proposal in front of you that you agree with. So it's not temporary denial, like pending approval. You want to see an entire, from what it sounds like, you want to see an entire new proposal. And then consider that proposal. That's
Okay,
my
thank you.
understanding
I
from what I've
bring that
heard.
up
And I just
just
wanted to know,
because,
go ahead.
Thea, you said in the beginning that you were not comfortable with a full denial. So I just want to make sure that I understand all of the process, thought
Yeah.
process everyone has gone through as we.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I think that with that information that we're getting from council and thinking through the time limits, that if this is the way that we're going, I'm okay with it.
You're okay with a full denial or a temporary?
Yep.
denial? Full
The full
denial.
denial.
Full denial. And I'll just ask, should we mention in the, I guess, kind of preamble to the resolution that we are in agreement with HPO to deny the application? Or does that even matter? I just think there's some weight to it. I mean, it's, you know, the staff gave us a recommendation and we're agreeing with the staff for the following reasons.
You folks are the decision makers here. It's your decision. They don't make recommendations.
Okay.
I'm
Thank
sorry,
you.
I didn't understand that. Could you say it again?
The council are the decision makers here. It's your decision to make.
Okay.
Our recommendation to me.
That's true. You're recommending to the commissioner, correct, for a final decision, right?
Okay. Any other additions, comments, edits?
I think I may have one additional thing to maybe add, and maybe it should be added to item number 1, and that is the repeating that other alternatives have been alternative access means have been and do exist at other historic stations. It's something that's mentioned at the beginning, but I think, or excuse me, in the whereas clauses, but I think repeating that here may be warranted, that we're not asking for something to be considered that just doesn't exist anywhere else, that there are existing historic stations where
Seems to
these,
me that should go in section 2, but I see
or
you.
it can go in section 2. I just,
Yeah.
wherever, I just feel like it maybe should just be reiterated that we're not asking for something to be considered that just doesn't exist anywhere. Like,
Right. No, I get
these things, this does exist in other places, and that's why we're asking for greater consideration.
Or it should go in section 2, where feasible and prudent alternatives exist. Say, and
Yes,
they-
and maybe at the beginning. Go ahead. So that's my, I think that's my last recommendation, is that we reiterate that this is a historic station, that there are examples in other, at other stations, just to kind of drive home the fact that we're not asking for something that is an anomaly.
Yeah.
Exceptions have been taken at other stations that are historic, that have tried to balance, what we're asking.
good.
Sophia,
Yes.
I'll clean it up.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Right.
Other than that, I accept the changes as proposed.
The second,
Yes, I accept the changes as proposed as well.
first and second. Any other questions or comments? Any other unreadiness? Hearing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Sophia Jones Bradford,
Yes.
Bobby Alaya,
Yes.
Luann DeCunzo,
Yes, sorry. Yes, did you hear me? Yes, that's,
thank you. Robert Preston,
Yes,
thank you.
thank you, Megan.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, appreciate it. So this resolution will go to the commissioner as a recommendation for final action. Is there anything for good of the order? Because it's 1:54 PM. I told you. Thank you, guys. Good job, and hopefully we'll be able to see this thing through to fruition.
Yeah, I hope so too. I think it's really important. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have to pop off to another meeting, but thank you all, and I will see you in a couple months.
Did we do all the necessary business at the top?
Yes, we did. We had no communication, and
We approved the
We
minutes.
approve the minutes of the June 20th meeting. Yes.
All right, everybody, enjoy your lunch, which is
Motion to
getting
adjourn?
dinner.
Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your summer.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Good
Thank you very
job.
much.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.